Hey everyone, for today's book review, we are going to take a look at this book, Webb on Watercolor. Go beyond technique and develop your own dynamic style with one of America's foremost watercolor painters. The artist and author is Frank Webb. Webb on Watercolor is an insightful book that's built with lots of tips, techniques, and knowledge from Frank Webb, who is a professional artist who has been painting since 1947. So that's like 70 years ago. Now this book was originally published in 1990, and this paperback edition that I have here, this is the reprint version that was published in 2018 by Echo Point Books and Media. This is considered an intermediate book. This is not one of those step-by-step instructional books. So this book features a collection of tips, techniques, and many of the tips are a bit more advanced, so this is the sort of book that would complement other instructional books that you may already have. There are some artists who focus on detail, some would focus on color, some on play with shapes. Frank Webb is an artist who focuses on colors and the play with shapes. So this book, it covers mostly the basics of making art, with the focus, of course, on watercolor. And the other focus is on the approach to painting. A lot is written about the thought process, and there is a lot of explanation, like why is the shadow there, what causes the shadow, where does the reflected light comes from. There is a lot of explanation to help you understand the concepts that are behind it. So it's not just merely copying what you see. And as you can see, there is a lot of text. So this is a very insightful book. This is one of those books that I would come back once in a while to read again. Some of the topics that are covered in this book are actually not very different from other watercolor or art books, but there is always the artist's individual take, the artist's perspective, and basically how they approach the subject, the topic. So there's always a lot to learn from different artists. So 10 artists can talk about colors, and 10 artists would talk differently about colors. So in this book, Frank Webb would interpret the subjects in his own style, and you can see that his style focuses a lot on the play with shapes, negative shapes, wet on wet, having the colors blend together softly, and then some of the edges, they are very hard, some of the edges are very soft. So this is his style. Not so much on details, but really a lot on the shapes. So his style is very stylistic. I love reading about the approach to art from different artists. Another artist that I really like is Charles Reed. Many of his books are my favorites. I have featured Charles Reed's books on my channel before, as well as on my blog, so you may want to check those books out because they are fantastic as well. So let's see, what do we have here? Space, planning. So this book is broken down into different subjects, different chapters. So let's take a look at the chapters. We have elements, mechanics, values, color, style, space, planning, encounter, life, diagnosis, and philosophy. So some of the chapter headings are not that obvious, but they basically just all talk about the basics of making art. So this is on planning, on how you can sketch out your art, how you can compose your frame, your scene before actually painting. So you can test out whether or not your sketch or composition, whether or not it works with pencil or with tonal studies first before you actually go into making a larger painting. By the way, I sound different today because I'm having a cold. So here are some tips and techniques, a list of tips and techniques at the end of the chapter. This chapter is on how you can approach a scene, how to think when you are looking at a very detailed scene, where to start, what to focus on, what are the important elements, where are the important areas. So there are different subject matters like landscapes, still life. Here we have human studies, portraiture. This is an intermediate book, so some of the tips and techniques mentioned you may or may not be able to understand depending on on how skilled you are at the moment. If you don't understand some of the concepts that are explained here, you can come back to this book months later and read and go through them again. Maybe then you may understand. So this is one of those books where the tips here, the techniques here, they are pretty much timeless. You can refer to this book anytime in the future. So this is actually a pretty wonderful reference book. And that's all. This book has 156 pages. This is a wonderful book for intermediate and advanced watercolor users. I highly recommend this. You can find this book on Amazon and Book Depository. The affiliate links are in the video description below, and if you buy through those links, I actually earn some commission and no extra cost to you. So that's all for today's book review. I hope this is helpful. See you in the next one. Bye!